everyone, it's Kellen Brauer from RacerX back again with another race examination video. Going to start off with 250 Moto 1 start here, not because Joe Shimoda rips this fabulous hole shot, but more because I wanted to see what happened with Seth Hammaker, Max Vohland, Dilan Schwartz all going down in the first corner, because initially when I saw this live, I thought, oh, this is just another case of too many guys going for the same space in the first corner. Like, you can see how tightly knit this little pack is right here, like eight guys basically bar to bar behind Shimoda going to the first corner. So I thought it may be from that, but what actually happens here is you'll see Hammaker, he almost gets into the back of Hunter Lawrence right there and backs out of the challenge, but then he gets back on the gas and does actually hit his rear tire right there and immediately starts tipping over. And from that point, he is on his way to the ground. Lawrence's rear tire kind of just takes his front tire down. He hits the ground, and then Vohland right here getting on the brakes, but nowhere to go, just gets right into his tire and then goes over him. So I was a little bit wrong. I thought it was more of a case of too many people in the same space, but really that was just Hammaker too close to Hunter Lawrence's rear tire, and in the end kind of just bounces off of his rear tire and slides out into the dirt, and Vohland has nowhere to go and hits him. So interesting little sequence right there. Wanted to talk about the second 250 Moto start, though, because Haiden Deegan did not get a good start, and then he spent the entire Moto trying to fight his way forward in that Moto. And so kind of wanted to break down what exactly happened here with him off the start, because it's a similar situation, I guess, to that of Hammaker and kind of what we saw to Vohland. And it's that Deegan does get a pretty good jump. It's not like he's getting out-jumped terribly, but he does have a few guys on either side of him that are just out-dragging him a little bit, and they're pinching this space down because he started in kind of this little no-man's land right here in between the box, and then he has guys from the outside and the inside of him pinching him off into this first corner. So he backs out of the challenge right here, but then he kind of thinks about it for a second, realizes that his teammate Cooper is following Hunter into the first corner right here, and it looks like he's going to try to go for this space, but then you're going to see as he gets in here, he thinks better of it, gets on the brakes again, and backs out of it because that door was closing rather quickly. This is Hawkins right here, I believe, and then Vial. And so then Deegan, who normally has been getting great starts all year, ends up with about a 16th place start, where all of the guys that are nearest to him in that championship got better starts than him. So it just goes to show, even like a slight little delay or backing out of a challenge going to the first corner can really impact your start right there, like it did for Haiden Deegan. Now I want to talk about one thing from the racing, and that was Hunter Lawrence's line selection, particularly in the first moto as he was charging through guys. And they did not rip Millville that deep this year, and Hunter Lawrence, I think, realized that and took advantage of the fact that the track was a little bit more open. So you're going to see down this straightaway, and he did this all over the track, but this pass emphasized it the most to me. Justin Cooper is going to take more or less the main line into this corner. He's going right through the middle of the track. Hunter Lawrence is swooping to the outside, but as they come into this corner, you're going to see Cooper's just going to launch out and hit this rut right here, which is the same thing all these guys have been doing. It's not different or wild, but what Hunter Lawrence is doing is using more or less kind of like a real true apex maneuver right here. He's going to land on this bump and turn off of it as if it's just like a flat ground corner, more or less. And he does find a little bit of a rut right here to kind of hit, but then he just kind of blows off of it anyway. And so he's kind of taking the shortest route through the corner in terms of speed that he can carry, and he uses it to make this pass on Justin Cooper. But this is not the only spot that Lawrence is doing this. He was doing it before the sand whoops. He was doing it right here. He was doing it up Mount Martin, where he was swooping wide and then cutting off of just small little ruts to get a drive up the inside of Mount Martin. And I think he took really strong advantage of the fact that the track not being ripped as deep meant he could do some of those maneuvers to shorten up the racetrack and take some really opportune lines to make great passes like he did right there on Justin Cooper.
I want to remind everybody that this video is presented by onX Off-Road. Know where to go with the #1 off-road GPS app. Access 500,000 plus miles of trails and roads, open dates, and public lands. Use the code RACERX, that's RACERX, for 20% off when you download the onX app today.
Moving on to some 450 stuff and talking about Chase Sexton's crash in the first moto when he was in third place on the first lap. And why I wanted to highlight this is because Sexton did, in my opinion, a remarkable job right here to not have this go much worse. This is very much the Trey Kennard, I think it's 2014 Washougal crash, where the front tire clips as he's scrubbing. You can see it dig into the dirt right there. And so it's going to steer his entire bike more or less to the left. It's going to go towards this side of the racetrack, but his positioning is going this way because he's picking the scrub back up from, scrubbing over the face of this jump. So the fact that he lands in this position and almost saves it is pretty incredible. I think if there's no embankment right here, he maybe even rides out of it, but it looks like he just kind of slides it down and decides, you know what, I'm going into the bank right here. Better to just kind of, take it for what it's worth and not have a little bit of a worse situation. Let's go back and watch the actual crash from overhead right here. But you can see like it kicks out and then just almost saves it, just slides into the bank. I mean, that could have been so much worse if his body positioning was a little bit more off, or if it had dug in at the top a little bit more. It could have just flicked him forward and spat him onto the ground pretty hard. So I thought that was a pretty cool little job there by Sexton. And then eventually he caught Jett in the first moto. So let's talk about Moto 2 off the start, because Chase Sexton's going to get the whole shot. Jett Lawrence right behind him going through the first corner, and Jett almost takes over the position. But I wanted to highlight something right here. So Sexton actually continued to run the scoop tire in the second moto, but because he was gaining so much time on other parts of the track, Jett actually elected to go back to the intermediate tire for the second moto and not run the scoop. So they were joking in the press conference that the entire time Chase thought, oh, I hole shot him, I'm just going to pull away in the sand because I have the scoop tire as they go into the whoops. And then Chase said he laid into this corner right here expecting to get a lot of traction because he's got the scoop tire in a sandy corner, and instead it just blows right out and he slides out. So this was really the race kind of won or lost right here, because Sexton felt like this was his opportunity to take off with an early lead, get a big advantage on Jett in an area where his tire would not help him, and then eventually just slid out and Jett took the lead from there. But Chase did actually start to catch him again until this moment happened right here where he's right behind Lawrence going through this corner, and then just front end tuck and down he goes. And what ended up happening right here, as Chase put it, is that he had caught Jett because Jett almost crashed after the finish line jump on this lap. And so he's a little bit closer to him coming through this corner. And then this is the same thing that we saw with him crashing behind Ferrandis at Redbud earlier this year. The ruse kicked up by Lawrence blinds Sexton for where the line is. So he can't see it. He tries to lay into it, but I think he was a little bit early into laying into it. So he starts sliding on kind of nothing, loses his balance, and then just slides out. And unfortunately, that kind of spoiled the race right there. We would have maybe seen another battle between he and Jett, but ends up a little bit further down. Wanted to highlight here at the end what happened off the start in 450 Moto 2 with this crash right here. And what happens is Shane McElrath is crashing up the track here, almost gets into Time Master Pool, but it ends up putting him down. Then Jason Anderson flips off of McElrath's bike. And then what happens here, and the cameras will cut right here, is this is Henry Miller coming flying in, and he's going to hit Anderson's bike. So that's where the camera cuts. But this is all started with McElrath just swapping in the whoops, gets into the back of Master Pool. Nowhere for Anderson to go, and it spoiled just a great day for Anderson. He was so strong in the first moto, getting third. Could have gotten another great score in the second moto, but ends up DNFing, as did McElrath. And then Henry Miller also had a pretty big crash right there as well. So just unfortunate the way it all shook down with those guys, but good to see that McElrath and Anderson ended up being okay, and we're looking forward to seeing how they do again this weekend at Washougal.